Okay, I'm going to work through some of the problems from our study guide for assessment 4. Starting with number 1, when I'm looking for the zeros, that's the same thing as an x-intercept, same thing. So these are the x-intercepts right here and here. So my zeros are -1 and 2. Okay, I can turn those zeros into factors, and I just have to remember the mini equations are going to cause the signs to be switched. So this one will become x plus 1. And that one will become x minus 2. Okay, on to number 2. Referring to the equations below, the graph of g of x would come from, this is called the parent function. How would we have to translate it? How would we have to change it? Well, I start by looking here. This is the one that's different from what I expect. So -3 means it's going to go right 3. +4 over here, I look at that next. That means it's going to go up 4. And this means it's going to flip over. The negative sign means it's going to flip over. So I'll go right 3, up 4, and flip over is the same thing as reflection. Stretch is when you have like a number in front here and it makes it skinnier. Okay. The quadratic function has these x-intercepts, -5, 0, and 2/3, 0. Which are the factors? Well, this confuses me to even look at the choices, so I'm just going to write my answers down. So if it's -5, then I know x plus 5 is the factor. And if it's 2/3, that one's tricky. I think that's going to be 3x minus 2. Now, if you're not 100% certain, you can just go, into the margin here and just make a little mini equation. Like, is this really right? I don't know. Okay, so I'd make a little mini equation, 3x minus 2 equals 0, and then I would solve it. 3x equals 2. Okay, x equals 2/3, so it's correct. So that's just me checking my work there. It's 3x minus 2. And then I'll shade. That's this one and this one. Okay. Two factors are x minus 1 and 2x plus 7. What are the zeros? Zeros are solutions. Solutions. What are the solutions? So this is where you're going to make your mini equations. And you're going to solve them. X equals 1. 2x plus 7 equals 0. Subtract 7. 2x equals -7. And then divide by 2. So I get 1. And -7 over 2. And I'm going to put those in a solution set because zeros mean solutions. Okay, this is one of these review questions. Here's g of x. This says find g inverse of x. So this is where we have to go back and remember our steps for finding an inverse. The steps for finding an inverse are to replace the f of x or the g of x with y. That's my first step. And then the critical step to switch x and y. Switching x and y, and then solve for y. To solve for y, I'll subtract 5. This side doesn't become -5x, it becomes x minus 5 equals -4y, and then divide by -4. Now when you divide by -4, you got to divide everything by -4, and then I'm going to simplify this side. Maybe it helps to drop a 1 in there, if that's 1x. So this becomes -1/4 x. -5 over -4, that becomes a positive 5/4. And that is the inverse. G inverse of x is -1/4 x plus 5/4. Okay, another review question, solving an absolute value inequality. First thing I have to do is I have to isolate the absolute value. I'm looking for my highlighter here. So here it is. So I have to get this part right here by itself. That's the absolute value part that I need to get by itself. So I'm going to start by subtracting 5. It's very tempting to combine those, but they're not like terms. And this side will become 2x minus 3 is greater than 8. Divide by 2. And now I've reached the point where I have isolated. Once you've isolated, that's when you're going to write your two inequalities. Now is when the bars come off. And you write two inequalities and solve them. The first one is just like the original, right? I'm just going to kind of copy it down without bars. Add 3 to both sides. X is greater than 7. Okay, and the other one, I had to make two changes. I had to change the sign, and I had to make it negative. And then I'll add 3 to both sides. Running out of space, x is less than negative 1. So x is less than negative 1, open circle, go this way, greater than 7, go that way. Okay, another review question. Look at this, f of g of f of x. Okay, when I see the letter G first, that means I am going to copy down G and leave a space, right? I'm going to take out the X and I'm going to put something in its place. Now the thing that I'm going to put in there is not a number. I'm going to put in f of x. So I put 2x minus 1 right here. And that becomes 6x minus 3. And then we're going to combine like terms, 6x minus 7. Okay, f of g of negative 2. Okay, well, to me, this is a two-part problem because I don't know what g of negative 2 is. I'm going to do that part first. So part 1, I'm going to find g of negative 2. It's like I'm doing what's in the parentheses first. And that means I'm going to take my g equation, and I'm going to put negative 2 in for x. This becomes negative 6 minus 4. That's negative 10. Okay. Now when it says f of g of negative 2, what that really means is f of negative 10, because I know g of negative 2 is negative 10, so I'll make that substitution. And then I'll go grab my f equation and plug in negative 10. So that's negative 20 minus 1 is negative 21.